I just take it against God, and I just started like arguing with God, like yelling at God. Why did you do this to me? Why do you allow me to do that? Why this? Why that? Just arguing and arguing and arguing. I told him, I do not love you. I actually hate you, and I don't even want to love you. And I felt at the time, I literally felt God say, he goes, I understood.
Wow.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, man.
Very strong. I understood that, I didn't depend on nothing else. That the food that's always on my table is served by him and him alone. Because no one knew, man. Nobody knew. I didn't tell no one else. My the anxiety was like so many thoughts in my brain that were just driving me nuts. And then I remember there was this. This is one of the moments that I felt I really met God, in a very strong way.
Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you've been encouraged by this podcast and want to support what we're doing, can I ask you for a quick favor? Hit that subscribe button, give it a like, and drop a comment below. Let me know what stood out to you in this episode. It might seem small, but it really helps us reach more people. I'm committed to making this show better with every single episode, and your support means the world. Thank you so much. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of How I Met God podcast. And today we have Felipe Torres. We call him Feli. He is originally from Colombia, but we actually met here in Sydney, Australia. And now he's living back in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. So how you doing, Feli?
Rafa, how are you, man? Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's such an honor. It's such an honor to be here, and I love the initiative that you have and everything that you're doing. I'm just honored to be here, bro.
Let's start at the very, very beginning. Have you always believed in God?
Technically, yes, because you could say I was born in church, basically, because my family met God when I was around 6 months old. It happened through a car accident, very strong car accident that they had. They were driving in Colombia, and it's a bit of a dangerous road. It's sort of dark, and they were trying to overpass another car, and they didn't see the one that was coming, and so they just collided head to head. And my mom she actually went through the windshield. Yeah, she broke the windshield with her head, and so she lost one eye in the accident. She lost one eye, and it was very strong. I was 6 months old. So, however, it was crazy that I was not in the car at the time. They left me with a nanny. No one knows why. They don't understand why they didn't take me to where they were. They just left me with the nanny. If I would have been in the car, I wouldn't be here because it was a very strong accident. The car was, destroyed completely. And my mom had this. She lost one eye, and the other one had a piece of glass like stuck in it, and it was like 5 millimeters into the eye. So she was very close to losing the other one. And so in her whole recovery, they blindfolded her, of course, and they were treating her the good eye. The other one, she needed to have a bunch of surgeries on to like reconstruct her face. And so she was basically, you could say, blind for between 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And she was in the hospital for a long time. She was in the hospital for like 3 months. And she always says that she would see like just like white blankets, like what like a lot of white, yeah, you could say like bed sheets just moving around, and she would always kind of like try and look through it, because she knew there was somebody or someone or something behind those like, those white curtains or whatever. And she would be looking through it, and every time she would get close, she would, like, I don't know, wake up or whatever. And she
So
would
this
always
was
have.
through dreams. She was
It was through.
dreaming all of this.
She does not really know if there were visions or dreams. Because apparently when all of a sudden they blindfold you may start having like visions or not, because your brain is used to seeing, and all of a sudden you don't see anymore. So apparently, like, she doesn't know if there were dreams or visions. It could be both or either. I don't know. And all of a sudden, this lady comes in. She heard her. She used to go to the hospital with a guitar, and she would just sing. She would just sing Christian songs, and her name is Sylvia. And so she would go to hospitals and just play for people and just share the gospel and whatnot. And when my mom heard her, sing and all that, and she was very, very happy, very, outgoing person. And then she shared the gospel, and my mom knew when she heard the name of Jesus, she knew that's what she was looking for. That's the visions that she was chasing. That's what she was looking for. And she received the word at that time saying, I don't even know where it is, man. I think it's in Isaiah or somewhere in the Old Testament where it says that her kids and the kids of her kids will worship the Lord and will be in the house of the Lord. And so she was just like, at the time she was like, yeah, great. Didn't make much sense to her at that time, but that's how basically they met God. Then after that, she recovered her eye, and you look at her, you wouldn't even notice. And then she, of course, she went to church. She started going to church, trying to find out what this Jesus, who this Jesus was, right? And so basically we all went to church. Yeah, so I was a little kid when I started going to church, and I guess, yeah, all the way up until my teenage years, I was part of church. But teenage years are always a tricky time for a lot of people. So I was doing my teenage stuff. So I was just a little bit rebel, and I quite didn't fit at church. I thought there were too many rules, and I guess the church was a little bit legalistic. So it was like, it's what you normally hear, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. But there's sometimes not much into building a relationship, which is what really changes your life. It was more like just a set of rules. I needed to follow a set of rules. And so I was, as a teenage guy, you're like, nah, I'm not going to follow any rules, man. I didn't want to follow no rules. So yeah, I would say 14, it was when I started going like, man, this may not be for me. And I would say probably around 17-ish, or maybe even in the 20s, I just did my thing, man. I left church, and I was just living my life.
And I think it's really interesting what you're saying, that when we grow up in church, but we grow up, just following tradition, just following religion. Sometimes when church is very legalistic, and then in that transition from being a kid to being a teenager, we start to, like have our own opinion, and we're like, oh, I'm not going to follow this, and then we just go and do our own thing. So I think for us as parents, I just became a dad like 4 months ago. I know you're also a newish dad.
Congrats, yeah, man.
And I've been just like trying to, ask parents and ask God, how can I bring my kid with my wife to really fully know God from a very early stage? Because I've heard so many stories like yours or mine, where we grow up in church, but we don't really know God being a kid, So I think that's one of my, deepest desires in my heart. And my girl's name, her name is Anna, and I want her to really get to know God. I want her to fall in love with God. I want her to be obedient to God, like all these things. But I really don't know how to do it. So this is also part of the, one of the missions of us as parents.
What didn't work for me was what I mentioned before. I just understood a set of rules. I never understood the love of God in my life. And so when you just see a set of rules, eventually you just go, man, whatever, When all you know about God is do this or do that, or actually don't do that. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm gonna go do it anyways. What's the problem? That's a teenage attitude. Okay, so what? 100%. Now I did it. Now what? So part of it is that getting them to know or understand or hear about the love of God, and eventually, I guess they will have their own revelation.
So keen to know what happens. You between 14, 17, you're like, oh, whatever, I'm not going to follow this set of rules, and I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to live my crazy years. So if you can share a little bit of light on what were those crazy years like?
Yeah, I guess they were sort of on and off. I guess by the end of high school, I was just like, I didn't really care about church. I was like, I guess I would go just because my mom wanted me to. However, music was a big thing, though. I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm a musician, so music was always a big part of my life, and I also found a space to do that in church. So that's also a big part of how, a way that I got to know God as well. So maybe that was one of the things that I was like quite involved in church. I was like interested in it because there was always, there's always music around when you're in a church. But I was on and off, man. I was just doing my thing. Then when I hit uni, I did this working visa, and I went to the US to work in New York, close to New York. And I just when I got to New York, man, I just actually just did my thing. Like I was just living my life. I had girlfriends or whatever, and I was just doing my thing. I started, smoking, drinking fully, even smoking weed, everything, man. Like I was just living my life. And I'm not gonna lie, man. It didn't feel. I never felt sad, or I never felt like, oh my god, like I was just living my life. However, I did once you meet God, there's always a bit of a hollow space left. Like I said, it was not. I was not like needing that whole space to be filled. I guess because I was just so caught up. There's Bruno. I was so caught up in what I was living that I didn't really care. I was just like, yeah, whatever. And so that went on. I don't even know for how long that went on for, bro. Like probably around a year or two, maybe. But like I said, like that was the disconnection with church and God was happening since a few years back, 5 years back or so. I was just living my life, doing whatever I was doing in New York. I was working there and just having a good time, I guess. What I would consider that a good time at the point. So,
And it's crazy what you say because I've talked to a few people here in the pod, and I guess they go very deep into drugs or into like, they're criminals. They are like in desperate need of finding God. They don't know what it is, but they're in desperate need. They go through depression, anxiety, all these things. And it's beautiful when they meet God at a certain point in time. But I feel very related to your story because I also was in the world, doing crazy things, drugs and girls and drinking and smoking, pornography. That was a very big addiction in my life. But I
mhm.
never truly like felt desperate or like super sad or super depressed or super anxious. Like I was just doing my life and I felt like, I don't really need God. So keen to know in your personal story, how did you actually got to meet God? Were there any like rock bottom moments in your life that, became the turning point?
So yeah, after that whole season in New York, I went back to Colombia. I was in uni at the time, and I was studying industrial design. However, I always wanted to be a musician, and I didn't want to finish that career actually. Part of it was because my parents wanted me to study that. Because Latin parents can be sometimes a little conservative in that sense, and they want you to study a career that may allow you to have a better economic stability in the future. And I'm not gonna lie, bro, they're probably right. Like I change, I'd probably be in a better economic place that I am right now. If I would have studied what they asked me to, and it was a great career, man. Like I don't hold anything against them, but I was like, nah, this is not what I want to do. Yara yara. So I basically I started chasing music in that whole season, and in that season of really finding, like, struggling to really know what I wanted to do in life, because I was studying this thing that I actually hated. I couldn't really cope with it. I started to stumble upon God, I guess. That's from my perspective. God is always there. He's a gentleman. He knocks at the door, he waits. And I guess I started getting closer to him again, like, man, okay, so what am I gonna do with my life? Like, what is this? And so all of a sudden, funny enough, in all this season, I heard about Hillsong College in Australia. And I thought about it. I thought it was a great option. And I decided, like I said at the time, I was like getting back into church and stuff. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. I have heard the music of, like, Hillsong's music, and I was like, yeah, man, this is cool. And I was like, well, let's go. I actually didn't know it was a church. That's how little I knew about it. I was like, this is a great band, and they have a college. So I'm just gonna go to the band's college. That's what I thought at the time. I had
And you
no
were going to
clue.
come to study music
Music
and
songwriting,
pursue
yeah,
your music career, songwriting. Okay, cool.
exactly. So, and I had my life in Colombia. I had another relationship and whatnot, and so I decided to, be like, I told my parents this is not what I want to do, and they didn't really like that. Of course, they were like, man, we're giving you a career, we're giving you the opportunity to, get a bachelor's in something. And I was like, nah, I want to be a musician. Like, fine, fine. They were like, okay, so listen, we're gonna pay you your one-way ticket, yeah, and we're gonna equip you with some money so you can, like, guess, pay one semester or whatever, but then you're on your own. So I did. I left uni. I left everything I had in Colombia, and I went to Australia. And everybody would think, oh, but yeah, Australia is great. Life is easy. It gets easier as the longer you live there, and the more people you meet and all that. But at first it's hard, man. I got to Australia, and I was trying to find a job. I ended up being a food runner, which is not even a waiter. I wasn't even a waiter. I wasn't even good enough to be a waiter. I was in the whole thing. I started, of course, missing home, missing the relationship I had in Colombia and all that. And one day, I kind of like had this thought, and it really hit me. I was like, I was serving a plate, and there was this lady was kind of rude, and she was like, what is it? This is not what I ordered, whatever. And she kind of like, she didn't treat me well, so she kind of like gave me the plate again like that. And it dawned on me. I was like, man, I messed this up, man. Like, what am I doing? I left a good career. I left all the things that my parents were giving me back home, and what am I doing, man? What am I doing? And so that thought kind of like drilled a hole in my brain, because I started thinking negatively. I was like, what am I doing here, man? My finances were crap. I would just get enough money to pay the rent, and you know how rent is in Sydney. People that don't live in Sydney, rent is high, man. And I just had I literally had $25 a week to eat, bro. So I would buy this crappy pasta from Coles, and this, I don't know what sort of beef this was, but it was, I don't know, it was like ground beef. I would eat pasta, and I would buy cheese. I would buy cheese. So that was my diet, bro. Pasta, dodgy ground beef, and plastic cheese slides. And I was just doing that for almost a year, man. I think God was good to me, man, in my health, because I never had it. I never had no issues with my health at that time, man. I was living off of pasta, beef, cheese, and eggs, bro. This is not good. That thought was drilling in my head, man. What did I do? Well, how come I left all this to pursue music? And then I remember there was this. This is one of the moments that I felt I really met God in a very strong way. There was this 1 week or 2 weeks that I didn't have no money. All I remember is I didn't have money to buy enough food for the week. So there were like 2-3 days that I didn't have any lunch. Yeah, so I could have breakfast and dinner, but I didn't have no lunch. So I was in college. Whenever it was lunchtime, I will just kind of like go away, just do my thing. Those days, 2 weeks, those 2 weeks in a row that I didn't have food for 3 days, I remember clearly. And those 3 days, every day, somebody that was a different person. I never told no one about this at the time. No one knew, not even my parents, no one, not even my friends, nobody, not my flatmates, no one. Different people that barely even knew me would come close to me and say, God told me to buy you lunch. I was like, no, man, no, I'm good. I'm full. Like I already ate or whatever. They're like, no. He told me to buy you food. I want to buy you lunch. And I was like, no, bro, for real. I'm full. I already ate. No, you haven't eaten. I know God is telling me clearly to buy you lunch. What do you want to eat? And I was like, no, man. And finally, he'll buy me something. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Next day, no lunch. Didn't tell nobody about it. Somebody completely different. Hey, man, how you going yet? God told me to buy you lunch. No, bro, I already ate. Nah, bro. Here it is. Here's your lunch. He told me to buy. I was buying food for myself. He told me to buy you lunch.
That's crazy.
I was like, you're kidding me. No, yeah, eat it. Again, 3 days. And then the next week was the same thing. And then, so I understood at that point, like one of the things that I was asking, like, what am I doing here? One of the first answers were, you're going to meet your provider.
Oof.
That's what you're doing here. You're going to meet your provider. And so that's where it still makes me cry to this day, man. Like,
yeah, I get goosebumps.
I understood. Yeah. I understood.
Wow.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, man.
Very strong.
Yes.
I understood that, I didn't depend on nothing else. That the food that's always on my table is served by him and him alone. Because no one knew, man. Nobody knew. I didn't tell no one. I was like, I'm not telling it. I was embarrassed. I was like, bro. And imagine with that thought really in my head, what did I come here to do, man? Now I have no lunch. Like, what the heck am I doing? I couldn't even tell my parents because they told me you're on your own. And I also had pride as well. I was like, I'm not gonna tell my parents I can do this. So you have if I cannot eat lunch for a season, I'm not gonna eat lunch. Who cares? I'm gonna eat breakfast and dinner. Imagine a coffee was $5 at the time, or $4 at the time. I had $25 per week to eat. So I couldn't even have a coffee. So yeah, at that time, that was one of the first things that hit me hard, and my perception changed completely at the time, because I was like, you start trusting God in a whole new way at the time. Yeah. And so I earlier said that I went to Australia chasing music, and in reality, I think God was chasing me. God was chasing me, bro, because I was just lost. I was lost, and I didn't know I was lost. Because, like you said, some people are depressed. Some people are in need. Some people really they're searching for answers, and they don't know what the answer is. I didn't know I needed Him so much. And so that's one of the things that was happening at the time. That was a big hit for me. Like, it's one of the craziest experiences with that I've had with God. But I still was, I wasn't doing good. Like I think I went through a season of depression, and I didn't understand what culture shock was, and I went through it hard, and I didn't know about it. I was used to a certain lifestyle, and I went to Australia, and I was having a different lifestyle, different. I already know how to speak English, so the language wasn't such a big barrier, and so musically as well. Musically, I got there and thinking, I had my certain skill set and my talent, and I looked around, and everybody was incredibly good, man. So I was like, oh, I suck. That was my first thought. I was like, I'm not good at this, bro. Like, again, what am I doing here? Like, these people, it makes sense that these people are here. They're amazing musicians, amazing singers. And I was just like, really going down that, that train of thought. Yeah, like I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Blah 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 blah. And then I started fighting legalism at the time. Legalism sometimes, I guess, it's like it can become a thinking pattern on your life. So you become very harsh on yourself. You have no grace. And then I was feeling guilty for all my life choices. And then I started thinking I came here because of my bad choices. I could be in Colombia living my life I was having, and because of my choices, this and that happened. And so I guess I was having like anxiety and depression, and I didn't know at the time. Otherwise, I probably would have asked for help. And what happens with legalism is that your brain also makes you think that is God the ones that's punishing you. That you're being punished and pressured by God until you come up with an answer or with a certain result. And this was happening for months. I guess I would say 7, 8 months after all that, like consistent, like depression and anxiety and all this stuff. Sleeping, I couldn't sleep, so I would always fall asleep in class because at night I had just had bad, like nightmares, and I would wake up and I would try to go to bed. I never had deep sleep. I would be sleeping 3 hours per night, and then like be sleepy all day, and then my sleep was terrible, which adds to the depression, of course. And I was having that. I think I was holding a grudge against God. I thought it was God doing this to me. And one day I remember I was in a bus. So I used to live for the guys that live in Sydney. I used to live in close to Darling Harbour in Piermont, in the dodgiest apartment, man. There were so many people living in that apartment, man. There were people living in the balcony. The balcony had glass. The balcony had glass, and there were two people living in that balcony. That was dodgy. That was bad. That flat was weird. So many people living there. It was. They had two rooms, and it was 8 people. So 4 people per room, plus the two people in the balcony. Man, that was crazy. One bathroom, and so I was going from college. It was in Waterloo, and I would take the bus up to the city, up to the CBD. So I would get down in Hyde Park and just walk down to Darling Harbour. And I remember I was feeling like the anxiety was like so many thoughts in my brain that were just driving me nuts. Literally, I was just thinking like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I was, man, I really needed to talk to someone at the time. I didn't know. I didn't know I should have talked to a psychologist. And then I remember I get off the bus, and I just take it against God, and I just actually just opened my mouth, or my heart, I could say, and I just started like arguing with God, like yelling at God. I was like, just picture this. I was a guy yelling in Spanish in Hyde Park, just stuff. So people were just looking at me in the street like, what's wrong with this guy? I was just yelling stuff in Hyde Park. In the city, I was arguing with God. I was like, why did you do this to me? Why do you allow me to do that? Why this? Why that? And I just went on and on. I didn't even know how long it was. And I was just arguing and arguing and arguing and letting everything out, how much and I actually, this was strong because I told him, I do not love you. I actually hate you. And I don't even want to love you. There's nothing like, why the heck did you bring me here? Like, why did you, like, what is all this stuff, man? It like, And it goes back to the car accident. Why wasn't I in that car, man? You know, what's your deal with me, man? And I remember I had nothing else to say, so I was just like, I stood up in Hyde Park and I was like, okay, I'm going home. So I just started walking, and I felt at the time, I literally felt God say, "Heal, good." I felt like He said, "Good. Now you're honest with me. You were honest with me. Finally, you were honest with me. Now we can talk. Now we can talk like I'm here, like I'm your dad, like I'm your father." And a lot of people would say, "Oh my God, how are you yelling at God, this and that?" Some people could, at the time, my legalistic brain would be like, "Are you actually yelling at God? What is this?" And that actually was such a I felt like with the provision thing. And that moment, I felt like I met God in a whole new way. I met God not in my own understanding, yeah, not what I thought He was, but who He really was. He got close to me, and I could talk to Him. I could talk to Him in ways that, like, it's a relationship. So every relationship has ups and downs. Every single relationship I've had, and I'm talking about my relationship with my dad, with my mom, with my wife, with my sisters. There's always great moments, and there's arguments, there's moments that you don't necessarily like each other, and you just want to argue. There's stuff that you disagree on. And it's the same with God. The thing is that you just gotta go through it, and you gotta always talk to Him about it. This is what I'm feeling. This is like, just I discovered that side of God I never knew could exist. I thought He was, God is like some guy up there that's just, he's got a notebook, and man, you didn't follow this rule, man. Here's your punishment. And he was completely different, man. He was not only my father, but he was also a friend. He walks side shoulder to shoulder with you, and he's there to listen to you. So I think that they broke a lot of things, man. A lot of things. I was able to just talk to him as a friend. So
So
yeah,
beautiful.
I guess that's how I guess those two moments is how I would say I met God.
And it's so beautiful, Feli, how I think God knows what we actually need and He meets us in different ways. Like we all have a different story, a different background, different problems, different circumstances. And this story that you're sharing about those 3 consecutive days were, I can imagine you, like being proud of, I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm going to ask for help. But he knew what was in your heart. He knew what was in your mind. He knew everything that was going on. He knew that you only had $20 or $25 a week to survive and to
Yeah.
eat and to all of this. And this also makes me think how God uses people to bless other people, to talk to other people. And it's so good when we feel prompted by God, by the Holy Spirit, and He asks
Mm-hmm.
us to do something, to talk to someone, to give something to someone. And
Wow.
I always go, should I do this? Should I not? Should I do this? And I
Mm-hmm.
battle
Mm-hmm.
through, in my mind and in my heart. But when I do it, like I could say almost 10 out of 10 times, but I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times,
Mm-hmm.
something happens, like something good, like the other person was not expecting that. The other person was like, wow, thank you for this. Similar with my wife. So I think those 3 people that had no understanding, no knowledge of what was going on in your life, and they
Mm-hmm.
blessed you with a bit of food, that simple situation really got you to say, hey, thank you, God. You knew what was happening in my life and you're providing for me despite not asking for help from
Yeah.
anyone. So I think it's so beautiful how, I don't know where in the Bible says that, the story of the birds, that even the birds, like God knows what we need and He gives us even more than what we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got similar stories in my life where He just turned up without, like, no one else knew what was going on. He knew, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this cannot be, this is a coincidence. I'm sure this is God. There's no other way I could put this. So
Yeah.
and probably one of your biggest struggles was finances, and he provided despite the challenges in there. So, and then the other one, when you were going through the park yelling in Spanish at God and fighting with Him,
Yeah.
Feli, this is so good because my mom, she just passed away in December.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
And yeah, it was really hard. But when she met God, it was through the hardest point in her life. She had been married with my dad. She
Mm-hmm.
found out that he cheated on her. And then she's like, oh, I've been a good girl, a good daughter. She was a very good Catholic, very, yeah, very strong Catholic, I would say. But she didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with God. She was just following religion.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would go on the street yelling, God, you don't exist. God, I hate you. God, I gave you my life. And then you took away my family and you took away my kids. Like and she said, I looked like a crazy woman on the streets and people would look at me. She would jump into the cars to see if someone would kill
Wow.
her. Like she was like, but
Dang.
then and then she doesn't get killed. But then she goes into my uncle's library, and he had a library. He had lots of books. One of those books was the Bible, and then my mom opens the Bible,
Oh, wow.
randomly, and then there's this verse where it says, "Come to me, all you who are weary, and will give you some rest," something like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, I met God there. She felt rest, she felt peace, and then she started going through the Bible, and she started meeting people and all of this. But it was in that exact moment when she was desperate and yelling at God and very mad at God, she became, and she was honest with God. And then to your point, how you were saying, God was like, well, thank you for being honest. Thank you for talking to me. You can talk to me. You can tell me how
Exactly.
you feel. And I'm here for you, So I think that's so beautiful. And those two moments for you changed your, I guess, relationship with, a God that was just, maybe a God up there to now a God who
Yeah.
is probably here, your friend, your father, your provider.
100%, man. Wow. So sorry to hear about your mom, Rafa, man. That must be hard, man.
So now you go through these two deep moments, you meet God.
Mhm.
What happened after that? How did, I guess, your life begin to change after that moment? Did you have any, I don't know, inside transformations, or how did you approach life and God and church and music and relationships and everything after that moment?
After that moment, man, it was like I don't know, like things just started making more sense, I guess. Like I also had like I started having revelations as well as to how he was like, how I was saying, like maybe I was thinking that everything that was going on, everything was maybe because of a punishment or anything like that. And I started seeing clearly. I was like, well, yeah, sometimes we make choices in life, and every choice has a consequence. But then one thing that changed is I started feeling thankful out of nowhere. I was just thankful because I was like, I stopped thinking, oh, what am I doing here? I was like, look where you get to be. People go on holidays to Sydney. You live in Sydney. Yeah. I would cross the street in Piermont, and I would be on the Darling Harbour. And I remember one day walking out, and I was living this like anxious life, and this like all this stuff that was going on. And I never actually looked up, and just I remember looking. I love Sydney, by the way. If you cannot tell, I love Sydney. But I was just looking. I looked at Darling Harbour, like because you can see all the CBD from Darling Harbour, and Darling Harbour is beautiful. And I was just like, man, how have I been working here and living here, and I haven't noticed this? I get to live here, you know. And then I started thinking, I get to do this, and I get to do that, and I get to, man, experience, man. I've always liked Japanese food, so instead of thinking I was only good enough to be a food runner, then I became a waiter, bro. So that was a big update. That was a big, big upgrade. Nah, but then I started being thankful, man. Actually, I get to work in a Japanese. I've always loved Japanese food, so I now we work in a Japanese restaurant. This is cool. They would serve us food there, so it was the same food that they would serve to customers. So it was quality food. I just eat some good prawns, wagyu beef, calamari. Man, I was having some good food there, and I never noticed it. I never noticed all the good things that were happening to me. And I started noticing how God was not only my provider, but he was my protector. Like he was always there for me. I was eating beef and plastic cheese for whatever months. I never got sick. So God was there for me, man. I started seeing how God, instead of him being that guy up there that, just grabs a stick and hits you in the head, he's actually right next to you, man. And he's working things for good without you even knowing. So I realized everything that was happening was working for good. And at that time, I met my wife as well. Didn't we didn't when we met? I was also going through a breakup, so I didn't want to have any relationships or anything. But I met her as a friend, and we started. I remember we would like hang out with Latinos, and sometimes they were like, "Oh, let's sing," and I would just pull out a guitar. And I was singing, and then she goes, "Oh, I know that song." And I was like, "Oh, cool!" And she starts singing with me, and that's how we met. I was like, "Wow, she sings too, man! This is awesome!" We started. That stuff started happening. I didn't notice it either because I was so caught up in what am I doing here? My life sucks, blah 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 blah, right? And I missed the fact that I was meeting the woman of my life when I was singing with her. Like how cool is that? How cool is that God, gave me someone that sings. I started seeing those kind of things. It's little details. She sings, and I love singing. Music is my life as well. So, and now Bruno, my little kid, bro, he listens to music. He starts going like this. I'll upload a video one day. Anything with
That's
Queen,
cute.
Guns N' Roses, Worship, whatever song you throw at him, he goes. And he starts hitting the desk. So music now, music runs in the family, man. All these little things that I changing my perspective now. Instead of, again, like I said, instead of him being a punisher, he was just something that's working all things for good. He's always having details with me. He's always protecting me. He's making sure that I'm okay. I'm okay. And I guess when you're thankful in general, just life changes. Life changes because you're seeing life differently. So I realized, man, I get to be a part of Hillsong Church. I get to be a part of, I get to meet all these amazing people from all over the world. Nowadays, I am so lucky that I get to know people literally from, I don't know how many countries, man. Like if I ever visit Europe, I'm gonna have friends in Spain. I'm gonna have friends in Italy. I'm gonna have friends in France, Germany, because of what I was living at the time, you know. And I could keep on naming things that I started being thankful for. Just being thankful in general. So I guess that was a great shift in my perspective that started healing what I was going through mentally and emotionally. Being thankful brings healing in general.
I think when we walk with God, even during hard times, because hard times will come,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always happy days. But when hard times come and you're walking with God and you know that He's right there with you, He helps you, what you were saying, see through His eyes and see from a different perspective. And you start to actually appreciate and see what do I need to learn here? What do I have to be grateful for here? Yeah, I might not have
Mm-hmm.
this, I might not have this, I might not have this, but boom, you meet your wife. Like, again, back to my mom's story, very sad episode in December when I went back to Colombia. It was so hard, but it was a moment of healing between the family,
Oh wow. Yeah.
with my sister, with uncles and aunties, that because my parents were divorced. And
Mm-hmm.
anyways, it's a long story, but it was blessing through a very hard situation or a very hard season. So I think life, it's never going to be easy, but when we walk with God, He helps us see through what's, the glass half full. So you've been walking with God, in a relationship with God, for the last 11 years. Have you ever faced any doubts or struggles even after meeting God?
I started thinking, I was like, man, because if you think logically, sometimes you go, but what is it really like? Does God really exist, bro? Like, did Jesus really die on a cross and rose from the dead? Like, come on, you know. So I was like, yeah, come on, like, what am I believing on here? So logically, I started really, battling stuff like that. And at the time, I was studying songwriting, right? And then I felt God say, "You're gonna study theology," and I was like, "I'm not, bro. I'm not doing that." I was like, "Nah, bro. Nah, I'm not. Like, I hate studying. Well, let me study theology, man. Come on." And I was like, "Nah, forget it." So I just ignored that, and I just kept on doing what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, I remember I'm playing four-year music, somewhere. And this guy, he was a tutor in college at the time. And he walks up to me and he goes, when I finish my set, he goes, "God wants to prepare you in other areas, not just music. So music is okay for now." He's literally said that. Music is okay for now. Let God prepare you in other areas. You're a multitasker. Just do something else. I don't know what it is. Do something else. Music is okay for now. And I was like, oh my God, fine. Fine, fine, fine. So I started. I moved to theology the next day. The next year, I was finishing that first year of songwriting. Then I moved to. At the time, it was pastoral studies. Yeah, but then from then on, I moved on to third year and I started theology. So I ended up having a bachelor's in theology. So I did have many doubts, which were answered. And the more I started theology, the more doubts appeared. And the more I had answers to that. So definitely, man. Yes, I've had my doubts. For example, yeah, like one of the things that was, I guess, the biggest highlight from studying theology was a topic called the historical Jesus. Like, did Jesus actually exist or not? Is the resurrection story a real thing, or is it just like a little fantasy thing, or like a kids story or whatever? Because I mean, think about it. Somebody raising from the dead is like, come on, bro. Okay, good. That's a cool movie. And you approach this topic not as a Christian thinker, as a historical. That's why it's called historical Jesus, as a historian. So you don't only take the accounts of the Bible that says, oh yeah, Jesus, he was there. You don't only take the Gospels. they're a great source of information about Jesus. But you also find stuff about Jesus in Roman books or Roman accounts. You can find his name as Crestus because they spoke Latin. They said how this Crestus guy was generating like conflicts in the city, and he was creating mobs of people that were going to listen to this guy, and he was creating a bit of chaos amongst the Jews, and that's all the thing that Of course, we know all the story about oh jeez, I forgot the name. The Pharisees were wanting to crucify him because he was saying that he was God. He was this blasphemous guy. They're causing all this chaos. Who do you choose, Jesus or Barabbas? So they're making a huge deal about Jesus, The Roman accounts say this guy Crestus was causing a lot of issues and chaos in this area of the Roman Empire. And so then the accounts say that they essentially punished him, and he was crucified. So not only the Bible says it, you have different accounts, historical accounts. Why would the Romans want to make up a story about Jesus? No? This is just an account, like they were writing stuff. And so then you go, man, wow, that's crazy. Okay, so this guy named Jesus actually walked the earth. He's not a fantasy little character that we made up. No, there was an actual person that walked the earth, and his name was Jesus. And then the biggest point then becomes the resurrection, because that's the foundation of our faith. If he didn't come back from the dead, what are we doing? We're not like just quit and do something else. So and then when you look at the accounts and for example in the Gospels, how it's written and the way that they say, for example, the fact that they name women, they name women. Mary of Magdalene. How do you say it in English? Mary of Magdalene, and she goes like she was there and she saw the empty tomb, and then she walked with Jesus and she talked to Jesus. When you find that in the Gospels, at that time it was written like that because you had no phones to record, you had no other proof but to go to the person. That's why they put her name down, saying if you have a doubt about this, go ask her. Yeah. Again, the Gospels were written about 60 years after the death of Jesus. Yeah, so they're old, but still they go. There was this woman named Mary Magdalene. If you have a doubt, go ask her. And they're putting names down, like actual names, so that you can go ask them. So what's the logic here? If you want to make up a lie and you want to make it sound truthful, why would you name a woman at that time? At that time in history, the opinion of a woman wasn't as important as an opinion of a man. So if they wanted to make up a story and make it trustworthy, they would have said that the witness was a man, and maybe a man of higher class, right? But they mentioned women of lower class women. So the fact that it's written like that, you go, this has to be true, because why else would they actually write this down like this, right? Then when you go on the Acts of the Apostles, then all these people that claimed they saw Jesus back from the dead, they died because of it. So if you're making up a lie, saying no, I saw that guy come back from the dead, bro, and they go, okay, fine. If you keep saying that, we're gonna kill you. And when you have a sword to your neck, did you see him rise from the dead? Yes, I did, bro. It has to be true. It has to be true. It does not make sense if Jesus didn't actually come back from the dead. So all this, and I was studying all these, writing essays and studying all this stuff, which was my biggest doubt was like, did this guy actually come back from the dead? Is Jesus real? And is this story real? And then in my whole research of that essay, one of the resources there were books from people that are not Christians. Yeah. And there's this very important professor, I think he's from Cambridge or Oxford, but he goes, I do not believe in God. Like, I'm not a Christian myself. I studied this as my profession. This has nothing to do with my religious beliefs. Yeah, he expressed that little in that book. I don't remember his name, but I should remember. But he says that the what makes the most sense reading the Gospels and all other books about the life of Jesus is that he actually rose from the dead. This is a guy that he does not believe in Jesus. He's not a Christian. He's not a religious man. He goes, if he's dead, things just don't click. If he actually never rose from the dead, like how did that whole movement of the church actually happen afterwards? If they didn't have a revelation and if they didn't actually see him right on the flesh back from the dead, like Thomas putting the fingers on the staff, and having that experience of seeing Jesus come back from the dead needed to be true, because otherwise, if it was a vision as well, if it was just a vision, how can 12, 30 people have the same vision at the same time? If it's a hallucination, it doesn't make sense either, because you would have one hallucination, you would see Jesus, wow, Jesus, and the other guy would see something else completely different, right? So it's not possible to have a hallucination. Everybody had the same vision and hallucination. That does not make sense, So yeah, that whole study of the historical Jesus also was something that grounded my faith in a great way, because it's not only like the emotional side of things. It's like logically, man, like this guy actually walked the earth and died and resurrected for us, for our sins.
You did such a deep study of Jesus' life through history and through the Gospels. For you today, who is Jesus to you?
Wow, that's a very big question. I would say he's the foundation of my life, man. Like I cannot live my life without him. I would be just trying to run in mud, basically. He's my rock. He's what sustains my marriage. He's what sustains my fatherhood. He's what sustains my friendships. He's what sustains the way I think. And so he's my provider, like we've talked about before. He protects me. Like I can trust him fully in everything I do. Even moving to Argentina, you go, yeah, but like Argentina, like South America, man, like think of the economy in South America. And then I go, yes, but I do not depend on the economy of a country. He's the one that serves the food on my table. He's the one that provides. He's the one that puts the clothes on my back. And so that's him for me, man. He's literally, I didn't, the more I look around, the more I see him in everything. And I don't want to be like, oh, wow, what a great Christian. It's not necessarily because I do it. It's because that's who he is. I don't take any praise for that. It's him. That's who he is. If you let him, and if you look around, it's how you look at things. He's always everywhere. He's there whenever you're, working, whenever you're just living life in general. He's in every single detail. He was there whenever in your past, whenever you're going through a tough season. He's here now, and he's already in the next season of your life. He's already there, and you just gotta. And I guess that's how I walk. I trust him, because I know he's gonna be there. So I walk confidently, knowing that whatever things may happen, we encounter difficult seasons, but I just walk knowing that he's there already on that next step that I'm gonna take. He's there, So yeah, man.
We've been over an hour, and I do respect your time. So I just want to ask you this last thing. If someone is listening to this right now and they are going through a tough season, they are searching, they are skeptical, they're hurting, they maybe don't even think they need God, what would you like to say to that person?
First of all, a reminder that he loves them. Whoever you are, God loves you, man. He loves you deeply, and he's not. His love is, like, you could say, his love is wild for you. Like he went through a cross to find you. He withstood the very, very raw and crazy punishment, because he knew you would be at the other side of that. His love is wild, man. His love is wild. And he's not offended. He's not offended by what you think. He's not offended by how you feel. He's not offended by the thoughts that you think. He's way bigger than that. He's way bigger than anything that you're going through. He's way bigger that things that you may think are, crazy to think about. He knows them, and he's not offended or scared or alarmed by them. He embraces them. He knows, and he's felt that too, because what we talked about. He was a human being that walked the earth, so he felt what you feel now. And he's a gentleman. He's willing to listen. He's not pushing. He's there if whenever you want to. He's just there. I would also say, don't stop talking to him. Like I said, relationships go through ups and downs. That doesn't mean the relationship is over. Like my relationship with my mom, I love my mom with every part of my soul, But we've had arguments, man. Like sometimes she, for example, she hates my tattoos, and now I got tattoos all over. And so, but it's a silly example, but relationships go through ups and downs, and we just keep talking to him. Keep talking to him. He's there. He's everywhere around you. he surrounds you.
Thank you, Feli.
No
I
worries,
appreciate
man.
it. I had a lot of fun. All the best with your music, with family, with fatherhood, and really appreciate your time, mate.
No, Rafa, thank you so much, man, for opening this space again. Thank you for what you're doing, bro. It's been a pleasure and truly an honor to be here, bro. Yeah,
Thanks. See you
no
later.
worries, my man.